U.S. President Donald Trump says he likes tariffs. He's called himself Tariff Man. And Tariff Man has struck once again via Twitter, saying, on June 10th, the United States will impose a 5% tariff on all goods coming into our country from Mexico, until such time as illegal migrants coming through Mexico and into our country stop. The tariff will gradually increase until the illegal immigration problem is remedied. The Trump administration has already labelled the situation at the southern border a national emergency and is using national emergency laws to threaten the tariffs. The White House press secretary said they had, quote, no choice.
We've been giving them advance warning for months. We've asked them repeatedly and told them they have to do more. Let's not forget that the average individual that crosses over the southern border of Mexico, it takes 21 days before they reach the United States border. That gives them 3 weeks in which to break up, particularly these large groups.
Critics will argue this is a crisis of the White House's own making. Tougher immigration policies have led to more detentions of families and children, even deaths. But migrant flows from violence in Central America are up. The Trump administration have set no specific targets for Mexico to meet, but say the border, especially with Guatemala, must be strengthened. A crackdown on human smugglers must happen, and more asylum cases handled in Mexico. U.S. Homeland Security officials say success will be measured by a decrease in illegal migration from Mexico. But threatening tariffs is a big risk. Due to the trade war with China, Mexico is currently the U.S.'s biggest trading partner, and for 2018 was number 2. U.S. goods and services trade was $671 billion. Mexican imports, $371 billion. Vehicles, a whopping $93 billion. Electrical machinery, $64 billion. And Mexico sent $26 billion worth of agricultural products to the U.S. and $16 billion in mineral fuels. Complaints poured in from the big U.S. car makers to pork producers, and the condemnation was swift and adamant. The tariffs will hurt U.S. companies and consumers, they said. And remember, Mexico won't pay the tariffs, U.S. importers will. The tariff threat could also upend the newly agreed U.S. Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. All three nations had just started to pass the deal through their legislative bodies, and steel and aluminum tariffs were just lifted against Mexico just 2 weeks ago. Multiple media reports here in the United States say some of Trump's closest advisors, like Robert Lighthizer, the U.S. Trade Representative, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, were against this idea of threatening tariffs over illegal immigration. And as for Mexico, they immediately dispatched their foreign minister here to Washington. He is here this weekend looking to set up talks with Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, and others early into next week. But that June 10th deadline, almost just a week away. Nathan King, CGTN at the White House.
Just hours after Donald Trump announced the new 5% trade tariffs on all Mexican goods entering the US, Mexico responded with a letter to the US president. "I'm not a coward," President Andrés Manuel López Obrador wrote to his American counterpart, adding that social issues are not resolved with taxes or coercive measures, and suggesting cooperation instead. Mexico's president had more to say at his daily morning press conference, attempting to encourage dialogue with Washington.
I think President Trump will eventually come to see that this is not the way to resolve things. I think there will be a correction, if not immediately, but it needs to come, because this situation is not good for Mexicans, nor is it good for the people in the United States.
Alistair Baverstock, CGTN, Mexico City.